can try and win championships, and that's what it's all about. When you look from the outside and you watch this team, I know we're going to have a real good, solid hockey team this year.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Eric Wilson, and NHL free agency begins tomorrow. So we've got some Rangers news to cover, and of course, some rumors to discuss leading right into free agency tomorrow, and we'll have you covered with all of the free agency news right here on Fireside Rangers. So make sure to subscribe if you're new and ring the bell so you don't miss any single one of our free agency updates. But today, we've got some news regarding Andrew Copp and the Rangers potentially being out on him. That's the report. They're not going to sign him. They've also made some other moves with some of their restricted free agents, so we're going to discuss that. But before we do that, Eric, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. I know it's an exciting time with free agency right around the corner. The Rangers got a couple holes they need to fill. I know we're probably going to have to replace Vetrano. Still looking for that second-line center, probably a fourth-line center, and our backup goalie. So, we're going to see a very different team starting tomorrow. It's going to be interesting to see who we sign, who we let go. And, unfortunately, it kind of looks like Andrew Copp is out. Probably just weren't able to give him what he really wanted. So that's sad. But, we got to move on right away. The hunt begins tomorrow.
Yes, sir. And free agency is not around the corner. It is here, my friend. It starts tomorrow. I am hyped. I am ready. But you are totally right. The Rangers have a lot of moves to make, and we are going to see a much different Rangers team on the ice in 2022. Need a new second line center. Probably need some depth at the wing position. Definitely need to get a backup goalie. There's going to be a lot of changes made to this team, but there are some exciting changes that could potentially be made, and we want to talk about that after we discuss the report about Andrew Copp not re-signing with the Rangers. So per Arthur Staple of The Athletic, quote, sources say the New York Rangers are out on Andrew Copp. Sides talked over the weekend, but Rangers are likely looking elsewhere for their number 2 center spot. And continuing this report, it's also been rumored or almost reported that the Rangers have already decided to let Ryan Strome walk via free agency, which I know is going to make Eric super happy, but it does beg the question, who the hell is playing at the second line center position for the Rangers in 2022? Copp on his way out, Strome on his way out. We need fresh blood. The Rangers need to find someone new. And of course, they are very, very tight on money. I think it's about $10 million in total salary cap space right now that the Rangers are sitting with, give or take $1 million. And they also are not likely to be making any moves with Patrick Nemeth. So today is the buyout deadline. There has to be all buyouts made by 5 p.m. Eastern, and reports are saying that the Rangers are not going to buy out Patrick Nemeth. He was not placed on waivers today, which means the Rangers cannot buy him out unless they make a last-minute decision later on in the day, but that's very unlikely. And he's ineligible for the second buyout window because his $2.5 million salary doesn't hit the minimum. So now the options for the Rangers are to keep him, trade him, or bury him in the AHL, savings of only $1.125 million. So kind of, in my opinion, a mess up here by the Rangers. I feel like they should have bought out Patrick Nemeth, gotten that salary cap space so that they can invest that money elsewhere. What are your thoughts on the Rangers' potential decision not to buy out Patrick Nemeth, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, it's a confusing move. I think most Rangers fans were in agreement that Patrick Nemeth was a liability for our team. He hasn't really been productive much in his time here. So the general consensus kind of was that we were going to buy him out and just say goodbye right away. But I guess we had other plans, we'll keep him around a little longer. Hopefully maybe just package him in a trade for maybe like a 7th round pick or something just to get anything in return, really. But yeah, I mean, I guess we kind of just got to wait to see what their game plan is on this one.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. Of course, as I mentioned, they can bury him in the AHL, which would give them $1.125 million in cap savings in 2022 to 23 and $1.15 million in cap savings in 2023 to 24. So it saves the Rangers the $1 million cap penalty after the 2 seasons. So that's kind of something to note. Maybe they're thinking more long-term on the Patrick Nemeth decision. But let's also discuss some of the restricted free agents. Of course, the Rangers chose to qualify Kaapo Kakko, Hayek, Gettinger, and Royshoff. All no-brainer decisions. Eric, what are your thoughts on these moves?
Definitely smart. I know Hayek has already signed his qualifying offer. I believe it was just 1 year at 800,000. So he'll be a nice little replacement player. If someone on the 4th line gets injured, we can throw him right in. I'm very happy that they gave a qualifying offer to Kakko. Hopefully he'll be able to sign that quickly, so he doesn't become a free agent and we lose him. I'm happy that we're trying to get him to stick around. There's a lot of controversy after the playoffs what his future would have been, but it's really good to see. that we did extend him an offer. So yeah, hopefully he signs that and stays on for another 2 years or so.
Yes, sir. And there are some names that the Rangers did not extend qualifying offers for: Tyler Wall, Ty Ronning, Justin Richards, or Jacob Elmer. None of those guys received qualifying offers, just the guys that I initially mentioned. And Capo Caco is reportedly close to signing a bridge deal with the club, expected to be for 2 years at around $2 million per season. Super exciting to me. I know we discussed what should the Rangers do with Capo Caco in a video a couple weeks ago. Make sure to go check that out if you want a little bit more of a discussion about Capo Caco. But we decided that it would be best for the Rangers to extend him, to keep him, and hopefully get him on a bridge deal for a very low average annual value. And that seems to be exactly what the Rangers are doing. So super excited to hear that. Love what Kako brings to the table. Unlimited potential, very young guy. But now let's turn our attention towards the second line center position. Eric, as I mentioned, Ryan Strome very likely not re-signing with the team. Andrew Copp reportedly not signing with the team. What do you think about the second line center position, and what are some of the names that immediately jump out to you as potential replacements?
All right. Well, to start off, thank God, I feel like we just beat Thanos. Ryan Strome is gone. Hopefully, knock on wood. But seeing Andrew Copp most likely leaving, that's kind of upsetting. We said a lot. He fit very well on the team for the limited time that he played with us. He had great chemistry with the players. And it would have been nice. It would have been a nice cheap option to keep around for the next 5 or 6 years. But I guess, he probably just wants more money that we just couldn't give him. So it's unfortunate to see him go, but we instantly got to start looking for who can replace him. And, there's a lot of second line centers that we've discussed throughout the last couple of weeks on who could be this replacement. We've discussed Evgeny Malkin, we've discussed Nazem Kadri, Mark Scheifele, JT Miller, and those are all great options. I've seen a couple other names thrown out there that the Rangers might potentially be interested in, such as Paul Stastny, Vinny Trocheck, Colin White, Zach Aston-Reese. So the point is, there are a lot of options out there. And I really just think there's 2 factors that need to come into play. We need someone who's young. We don't want someone who's in their mid-30s who's only going to be good for a season or 2 and then leave. And then we also need someone who's going to be cheap. We don't have a lot of money. So we need a young player who can maybe sign for like 4 to 5 years at around $4 to $5 million. I still think that taking JT Miller for 1 year might be our best option. But if we're talking long term, I know Colin White, he's a young guy. He's only like 25 or something. He's been playing on Arizona, very cheap. I think he would fit right in with Artemi Panarin. You look at guys like we've discussed, like Malkin, Kadri. I think they're a little too old for our purposes. Personally, I don't think it would be a good option to sign them long term whatsoever. Vinny Trocheck, like I mentioned, is also another good option. He's coming off a 6-year, $28.5 million contract, which is around $4.75 million per year. Last season he put up 51 points in 81 games, so he's a very solid point scorer. He's only 29 years old, so I think he would fit in perfectly. I can just keep rambling off names for an hour. The point is there are a lot of options out there. I think we're definitely going to pick up our second line center very early on at the free agency. It should be a very urgent cause for Chris Drury that he should hop on right away. But who it's going to be, I don't know. There's a lot of options, and I just got to hope that he makes the right choice.
Absolutely. Chris Drury has some big work to do, and he's going to have to get started immediately. In my opinion, I think it's almost becoming very likely, it sounds like. I just keep hearing this one name and all these rumors and reports. Geno Malkin, we discussed him in yesterday's episode. You just mentioned him. It sounds like the Rangers are pretty interested in signing the future Hall of Famer. Now, we discussed that yesterday. We're kind of lukewarm on that because a lot of injury history. He's getting up there in age, and his contract demands are pretty large. So I'm not too crazy about that, but it does sound like the likelihood is increasing on Geno Malkin for the Rangers to be signing him. But I guess we'll see soon. As you mentioned, there are a lot of different options, and not only in free agency, but in the trade market as well. JT Miller is another guy that we mentioned in a previous episode. Go check it out on the channel about a week or 2 ago. We discussed JT Miller, and I think that he is a great fit for the Rangers. He's got some versatility. He's played wing, played center, and he could be that second line center for the Rangers. But I also do want to mention something along the lines of a major blockbuster that could be happening. Now, there is this tweet going around that a lot of Rangers fans are giving attention to. It's from Blackhawks Nation, Chicago. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Now, this is supposed to be the #1 news source for Blackhawks news, HawksInsider.com. They've got some sources, and apparently The rumor is Patrick Kane will put in a trade request on Wednesday when free agency is underway, per Chicago Radio Insider. His top team was reported to be the New York Rangers. He wants to link back up with his duo, Artemi Panarin. Now, Eric, that is something that we discussed on this channel. You guys showed a lot of love on that video, gave it a lot of views and a lot of shares, so we appreciate that. Make sure to go check that out if you want a deeper discussion on Patrick Kane. But, Eric, briefly, I want to know, what are your thoughts on potentially seeing the Rangers not go all in at the second-line center position, but instead pivoting their focus to go after Patrick Kane?
It's an interesting way that we could handle it, but if we do it right, it could just work out for the better for us. Because Patrick Kane, I don't know what the Blackhawks were doing this offseason. They took all of their great players and just shipped them off for nothing. So Patrick Kane is furious with the management over there. He's demanding that he leaves. He said there's absolutely zero chance that he remains on the Blackhawks past the trade deadline of next season, because we do have to trade for him. And the fact that he wants to go to the Rangers, that he wants to go back to his all-time favorite teammate, Artemi Panarin, shows that he might be willing to work with Chicago and maybe have some salary retained. We can sweeten the deal for them because he wants to come to us. And honestly, if you look at a second line that has Artemi Panarin on the left, Patrick Kane on the right, you can throw someone like Ryan Strome in the center there and instantly make them a point per game player. Ryan Strome's stats were already inflated by Panarin more than he should have ever been putting up. Then you also throw in superstar Patrick Kane in there. It could be anyone. It could be me, and I'd put up a 50-point season if I played with Artemi Panarin and Patrick Kane. So, if we had that amazing second line, we don't really need an all-star in the center. It can be literally anyone. You can throw Hedl up there on the second line. So having the second line that good, it would definitely lessen the urgency for star second line center. So it's definitely an interesting way to look at it. Is it realistic? I'm not sure. Probably not. But, it's definitely something interesting that could potentially happen.
Well, I'll tell you, if Chris Drury does go out there and acquire Patrick Kane, I will be making a call to anybody that I have on the inside working close to the Rangers to try and get Eric Wilson as the second line center of the Rangers so he can put up 50 points and live up to his expectations he set for himself, playing alongside Artemi Panarin and Patrick Kane, because that would be pretty amazing to see. But I'm also very curious now, because you did just advocate for the potential re-signing of Ryan Strome.
Okay,
now, if you guys have been listening to every episode, you should understand why I'm so shocked. This is Mr. I Hate Ryan Strome himself here. Eric, what would make you attracted to the idea of re-signing Ryan Strome?
Well, no, let me clarify. I'm not attracted to re-signing Ryan Strome. I'm saying that someone like Ryan Strome, Ryan Strome's already done it for me. He could instantly just come out and put up 100 points next season. I would still hate him. But, someone on his caliber would definitely be improved by playing with Artemi Panarin and Patrick Kane.
Absolutely. Really, anybody would improve playing alongside those guys. But I do want to jump over and take a look at a couple more potential second-line center options. We've discussed many of them, but I'm going to go ahead and jump over to this Forever Blue Shirts article. New York Rangers may be forced to go free agent route for a center. Of course, just kind of discussing how Copp and Strome are likely on their way out. And let's see. We've got some interesting names here. Dylan Strome, 25 years old. Eric, that name ring a bell? You want to provide any insight on him? Dylan Strome did play 69 games this season. He put up 22 goals, 26 assists, 48 total points, and his average annual value was only $3 million. And according to multiple reports, the Chicago Blackhawks will not extend a qualifying offer to restricted free agent Dylan Strome, making him an unrestricted free agent. So it would be a little awkward to see the Rangers let Ryan Strome go and then go after his younger brother to replace him. But Eric, what would your thoughts on that be? Are you an advocate for the younger brother of your least favorite player, Dylan Strome?
Dylan Strome, I like that. I've been a big fan of him on Chicago for the last couple of years that he's been there. He's still very young. He shows a lot of potential, and I definitely think that he could easily grow and fit onto our team very well. He's kind of just the same thing as Ryan Strome, but younger and has the potential to improve.
And that kind of falls right in line. Let's say maybe, I don't know, Rangers get Patrick Kane, then they go get his teammate, Dylan Strome. basically getting what Eric mentioned in kind of that Strome level player with another Strome, just a younger, higher potential Strome. So that could be pretty interesting there. Even if the Rangers don't get Patrick Kane, he could be a potential second line center for the Rangers. I would assume that his average annual value would be under $5 million, which is exactly what the Rangers are looking at. Colin White, 25 years old, 24 games played, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points, 4.75 million average annual value. The former first-round pick from the 2015 NHL draft, 21st overall, had a very tough season after a dislocated shoulder that required surgery ended this year. The Senators bought out his contract, thus making him an unrestricted free agent at only 25 years old. There are a lot of teams interested in him, but he's likely better suited for a third-line role at first. If the Rangers are willing to give Filip Chytil a chance at second-line center, White could be had at a very reasonable price considering he was just bought out and had a tough season. Eric, what are your thoughts on potentially going after Colin White for the third line center and bumping Filip Chytil up to second line?
That's not something I would want to do right away. Throughout the last regular season, Hedel kind of sucked. I'm going to be very blunt about it. He wasn't that good. And, I reached a point where I was already like willing to maybe look for a trade for him to get him off the team. But then the playoffs came around last season and he played phenomenal. So now we're kind of confused. Is he going to continue this great play into next season, or was that just like a one-time deal? I don't know if Hedel is ready just yet to move up to the second line. It would definitely have to give it some time. So when it comes to White, I would say wait a little bit. Don't try to sign him right away. If he gets picked up by another team in free agency, you can maybe trade for him later down the road. But I wouldn't put all our money on Filip Chytil just yet.
Yeah, I'd say Colin White is an option for the Rangers. Let's say they get into some bidding wars for trades, negotiations for some premier second-line centers, and somehow Chris Drury can't get it done. It all falls through. I think a couple weeks down the road, if Colin White is still on the market, that's when you go swing at him and maybe take a look at putting Filip Chytil on the second line. But I don't think that he should be a main priority. So we've got another player that I want to mention. Eric, I think we've mentioned this guy before and discussed him a little bit. Vincent Trocheck, of course, 29 years old, 81 games played, 21 goals, 30 assists, 51 total points, coming off of a contract of $4.75 million average annual value. There's been interest in him dating back to his time with the Panthers. However, as an unrestricted free agent, he will command a nice increase that could see him break the $6 million average annual value mark. If that's the case, this is a non-starter for Drury, regardless, as mentioned before. The term will be the biggest hurdle, and he will absolutely be looking for at least a 5-year contract. But there is more room to work with him than there are some of the other guys like Malkin that we've mentioned earlier. There is a lot that could be done with Vincent Trocheck. Of course, as I mentioned, $6 million average annual value. Does that scare you away, Eric, or is this somebody that you could potentially see Chris Drury going after in free agency?
So $6 million is a scary number, but Vinny Trocheck is a great player. So I feel like it would maybe be worth it if we were to sign him for it, given we'd have to probably lose another player to just clear up that cap space. But, he's only 29 years old. If you wanted like a 4 or 5 year contract, I'd be willing to give it because that would end when he's around 34, 35, usually when your career starts to drop off and you start to not play as well. So $6 million might be a little high. I would rather aim for like 5 to 5.5, but I wouldn't mind pushing 6 for a player of his caliber. I think he'd be a great fit in the center position on the second line. He'd play great with Panarin and whoever we throw in there on the right wing.
Yeah, so I'm curious to know, though, Trocheck or JT Miller, who would you lean towards there? Or I'll even throw in a third name, PierreLuc Dubois. We've discussed JT Miller and PierreLuc Dubois on the channel before, so make sure to go check those out. But of those three, who's the front runner for you?
Overall, probably PierreLuc Dubois. I think JT Miller is definitely the best player out of the three that we mentioned. However, we would only have him for 1 year and then have to re-sign him for an insane amount of money that we definitely wouldn't have. So it'd be a one and done type deal. Vincent Trocheck is probably a little too expensive. I think overall the most well-rounded option there is definitely PierreLuc Dubois.
Absolutely. 24 years old, could potentially be somebody that they try and get long-term. But there is a high cost in trading for PierreLuc Dubois. And of course, locking him up for 7 years at around $8 million average annual value will require sacrifices. When you consider Lafreniere, Keandre Miller, Filip Chytil, they all need new deals next summer. You go ahead and make a deal for PierreLuc Dubois. He's going to want that 7-year, big $8 million average annual value contract. you're going to have to sacrifice pretty much all of those players just to acquire him. And that might be a tough sell for a lot of Rangers fans. Do you really want to let all those guys walk in order to get this one stud at the second line center? I'm not sure, because some of these guys we mentioned, like we mentioned with Philip Hedl, he has potential to be a solid second line center one day. Do you really want to sacrifice him now just to win now? And maybe you do, because a lot of Rangers fans feel that we're one player away from the cup, and that's totally reasonable. But let's discuss this article also on Forever Blue Shirts. New York Rangers appear to be the front runner for JT Miller. So we've got a couple quotes here as well. Elliot Friedman was recently on the Donnie and Dolly show speaking about where things were with JT Miller. Quote, I think they move him at some point. We will see where he goes over the next 24 to 48 hours. It's in Vancouver's court. I think a couple of teams that we look at are Washington and the Rangers. I also assume there's more out there that we don't see, but reportedly, David Pagnotta from the Fourth Periods, Vancouver has a 6-year offer on the table to JT Miller, so they are trying to re-sign him. But as mentioned, the Rangers are the front runners in a potential trade that could go down within the next 48 hours. There are teams bidding for him, but the Rangers seem to be the front runners for JT Miller. Eric, I want to get your quick thoughts on that report. And is this the move that you're hoping the Rangers make?
I don't know if I would say I'm hoping for it, but I definitely wouldn't complain if it happened. Having a nice little reunion with JT Miller would be great. He was a 100-point player last season. He's very good. He'd fit perfect right on that second line. We'd have 2 almost 100-point scorers on our second line, which hopefully would be that last thing that we need to elevate us to the Stanley Cup. The only risk, like we said, is it'd be for 1 year. We have to give up a lot of assets to get him just for 1 season. So it just is the reward worth the risk? This could backfire completely on us, and then we would just lose a bunch of assets and players for nothing. So we kind of just got to hope and see what happens with that one if the trade doesn't actually go through.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough discussing some of these guys that would be one and dones. There are some trades and some moves that the Rangers can make that are very expensive, high risk, and super high reward. So it's really just up to Chris Drury. How hard is he swinging to hit that home run? Is he going to risk it all to get the cup in 2022 to 23? Or does he want to play it a little bit more long-term, play it a little smarter? I guess we'll see about that. That'll be interesting. But of course, tomorrow, free agency begins, and we are super excited to give you the rundown on everything that the New York Rangers do throughout the free agency period right here on Fireside Rangers. So please make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss any of these updates. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, and comment down below, of all of the many names that we just mentioned, the options for the second line center position, who is your pick? What move do you want to see the Rangers make? And if there's some names that we didn't mention, comment them down below, because we'll keep an eye on them. And if it takes a little while for the Rangers to make the signing, we'll discuss whoever you comment down below in the comment section. So make sure to get active. We'd love to interact with you all. Again, make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video. Subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss a video. And we'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Rangers.
Anyone but Strome.
He shoots. He's